Bum 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 bum.
Interesting.
Bum 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 bum. Hask concert is coming up, everybody. So make sure to get your tickets at hask36.com. I'll be there.
Yes.
You gonna be there?
I will be there.
I can't wait for that. It's honestly the best concert of the year.
I'll be there with my partner, Hesky Asaf.
I'll be there with some of my staff from Meaningful Minute.
We're taking the whole HBAS too.
We're taking the whole Meaningful Minute.
How are you, dude?
Your company's probably bigger than my company, but my company's better than your company. Ha! We should play dodgeball.
It's not like that.
It's not like that at all. Anyway, shout out to Isaac Newman sponsoring the merch for today.
Wow.
MedServe. Anyways, we have an amazing episode with Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan. I've been looking forward to this episode for such a long time. I'll just give you one word or one thing about this episode. He cried in the middle. And like anytime a guest cries in the middle of an episode,
Wow.
it's gold.
What a yid. What an incredible yid. So heartfelt, so genuine, authentic, doing incredible work. Thank you, Nachi, for helping me with my microphone.
I didn't want it to block your upper lip.
Oh, thank you. But yes, fire mamish.
Yes, he was really
unbelievable things for Klal Yisrael.
He's really amazing, and it's always fun being able to sit down with someone who like I'm very comfortable with, and I consider like a friend and a role model. I'm comfortable with everybody, but especially Rabbi Bensoussan, who again he has a podcast with Meaningful Minute called 2 Cents. Him and Rabari, part of the network, and hopefully another season coming soon. But if you don't know about it yet, check it out on Apple, Spotify, 24/6.
Very deep.
Check it out on those platforms and the Meaningful Minute app, of course. And we'll get right to this episode. But first, a word from our friends at Infinity Land Services.
So, funny story.
It's a long story.
What's his story?
Tune in for the top story.
The front lines of this story. This is just the start of the story.
When it comes to closing on a property, you don't want a story. You want a title. At Infinity Land Services, we've been helping you close real estate transactions with confidence for over 20 years. No drama, no excuses, no stories.
You are listening to the Meaningful People Podcast.
The podcast featuring our nation's most impactful, influential,
And meaningful people. It's so funny. I texted you this morning. I know we're doing this fairly early, or to Momo it's already the afternoon. But
Right, for me it's the afternoon right now. This is where I start, yeah.
So for me it's like still I'm turning over to the right
Thanks
side.
for coming in early, Nach.
You guys woke me up. Thank you. But I said, can I get you a coffee? You said you want a black coffee. I'm like, black coffee. Do you want milk, sugar? And
Read the text.
I'll read the text. Listen carefully, Nachi. I love you, but if you put anything in my coffee other than coffee, I'll have to sever your head and our relationship. The head part I added.
The head part I probably should have put in.
It makes more sense than severing a relationship. That's extreme.
That's what's gonna happen.
It's a man who takes his coffee seriously.
That's what's gonna happen. There are a few things that I exist on, and one of them is the absolute bracha of coffee.
Wow.
And I'm very particular about it. I like to say I do coffee like I work with people. I take it straight, black, no cream, no sugar, no frills. It's real. It's the base thing, and you go for it. That's it.
Me too.
That's how I do it.
Speaking of working with people, let's dive into.
I was going to ask you if you like Starbucks or Dunkin'.
That's way more important.
So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a
or 7-Eleven
snob. I'm like, so you should know a lot of places have like surprisingly Whole Foods has probably the best coffee.
Oh wow, Rich over here.
Whole Foods has the best coffee. It's cheaper than Starbucks or Dunkin'.
Is it?
Starbucks just tastes like burnt. I don't know what, like burnt crackers.
How's this coffee?
This is delicious. Where's this from?
Starbucks.
Really?
No.
This isn't a Starbucks coffee.
It's from Toddy's across the street. Free plug for Toddy's, I guess. Somewhere over there.
OG 5 Towns Cafe.
Yes, from the Todman family.
in Lakewood, they have a place we could plug for them because they happen to do amazing things for people.
In terms of food, yes. Incredible. And people.
No. The place.
What he's about to say. The following.
Let's not talk about Lakewood in general. It's called the French Press. And so I go in there. They know I'm there for the Yemen bean. Like they're one of the only kosher places I know that like has the Yemen bean, and I'm there for the Yemen. Like they know me already.
The Yemen bean.
I'm there for the beans from Yemen.
Yemenite beans?
They like import it every night.
They import it. I don't know what, but they don't always have it. And there's a jump in price like crazy. I was in Nashville one time, and I'm walking through. I was working and not working, and I was waiting for my flight, and I went to like this coffee house. Someone said I had to go try, and I think it was like a $18 cup of coffee.
Wow.
And I couldn't not. I
You
had
had
to
to
go
get it.
for it. And also coffee is like a meal replacement for me. I don't eat till like the afternoon. So
Really?
it's like my whole breakfast. And
They have $18 donuts?
and no,
Hanukkah style?
that was it. It was like $3 after. Like the jump was crazy. And it was the best cup of coffee I've ever had. And it came out in this thing like it was.
It better be the best coffee you
It
ever had.
was.
I don't think I've
$15.
ever seen you without a coffee. Makes sense.
You'll never see me without a coffee.
You get anytime you
And
go
the
up
funny
to
thing is I don't drink a lot of coffee. It's the same one.
to safety.
Nurse it throughout the day.
I nurse it throughout the day.
Is it a safety for you?
It is for sure. While I'm speaking, without a question. If I go up and I don't have a coffee or a drink, it was one speech. It was on a tanis.
Probably for Chazak.
For Chazak.
Yeah.
It was on Shavasar
One
Batamas.
of those 17-hour marathons.
Shavasar Batamas. And I got up there. And this is like Chazak, also big plug for Chazak. Like this is like a Chazak classic because I got there and I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. I just drove in. I drove through the night. It was a Sunday morning. I drove through the night, Mitzvah Shabbos from Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I got there, no coffee. Also no coffee because I didn't take into account the time, the sunrise, sunset differences,
Right.
the LA's differences. So I'm in the middle of the I-80 and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop now and have a coffee before. And then I'm like, I should check where I am as opposed to where I just came from. And sure enough, I missed it. And
Wow.
I missed my crutch.
Oh,
And I had to
man.
go up there, but it happened to have been, I don't know, something hit. And I like felt like I had a coffee, so it worked out. I don't know.
You know, one of my I don't remember exactly when me and you met. We've been talking for such a long time. We're like, I feel like we're
Family already.
definitely family. 2 Cents podcast.
Navi is the best looking Bensoussan brother. Everyone knows that.
Also the only one that's not like in chinuch.
Well, that could be debated.
Yeah.
He sure has the most hair of all the
Yeah,
brothers.
I was about to say. Not only that, the red hair, the gold grabs, my mom's side of family have red hair.
I when I
Like
see
you could technically,
when I see a Saudi with red hair, I'm always like,
oh yeah,
what
don't trust that guy.
happened? Like, no, I've seen Sardin with red hair.
Yeah.
Shout out to like the Apton family, Brooklyn. They have a kid with red hair. I'm like, that's amazing. It's like
Yeah.
a paraduma.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can hear that.
Is it not any?
Think around the Syrians,
shout
they
out
have a
to-
lot of red hair.
It's all love. Syrians. It's so
A
interesting.
Moroccan with red hair is.
I don't want to mix up my Syrian, Moroccan, Persian. I know you're
Yeah,
something,
no,
but I
yeah.
don't want
Wow. I'm being recorded. I don't
to. Did I say
get
something?
all offended.
Was
No, I'm Moroccan. We're Moroccan.
okay. Phew, so
The truth is, a lot of people don't know this, and I think it shocks a lot of people. And then a lot of people like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We're actually half and half.
your mother's
My mom's Ashkenaz, yeah.
and
My
it's so funny
mom's
because
full
a lot
Ashkenaz.
of you're not you, but maybe Reb Davi. He married an Ashkenaz.
No, only
Ari.
Ari.
Ari married a
and
Yeki, no?
My other brother, who we do not name.
I know his name.
I know you know his name.
There's one
but-
Bensoussan brother. You should know. There's Avi in Lakewood, Yossi in Cleveland, Reb Ari in LA, Reb Davi, and now he's in Lakewood.
Yeah.
And there's one brother that,
And my sister's doing even bigger.
and your
things.
sister who's married to
Kadoshes, Farhi.
married to a Farhi, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one brother who they just like sacrificed him. You're like, you're not going to be in the public eye. You're going to sit and learn for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And they do
He's a
not.
Brisker. He's the real deal. He's a
It's
massive
amazing.
Talmid Chacham. I'm
And you
really
literally
proud of
won't say his name.
him. I won't say his name. People know him.
Because then,
I'm
like,
not
some
gonna-
like a Pesach hotel is
like,
going to call him up and be
I
like,
don't
"You're a
need-
Bensoussan."
Exactly. I don't need any Pesach. I don't need anyone calling him. You know?
Yeah.
He's killing it. He's
So one of my first impressions of you is, first of all, we got to spend Shabbos together last year, but before that, I was doing by the Aguda convention. It was the year of the virtual convention year, and I was in their studio. Yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, it was pre-recorded. It wasn't live. Okay, they're out. Like
you outed the whole thing.
like honestly, most of these things are pre-recorded. Santa
So
Claus
many
is not
things.
real.
So many things are pre-recorded.
This is pre-recorded, but
I was
yeah.
doing a Tisha B'Av thing that was pre-recorded, and they were like, "Make sure not to eat." I'm like,
I walked into a pizza shop.
earring at 8 p.m. on Tisha B'Av, like might say Tisha
Yeah.
B'Av, like no one's gonna think I'm this peppy. Trust me.
Yeah.
I walked into a pizza shop on Motzei Shabbos, and I was like standing online ordering. Someone looks at me and he's like, how are you here? I'm in the middle of watching you.
The RCCS? That was RCCS?
That
No,
did
no,
happen
on
to me.
random Motzei Shabbos.
Oh.
I'm like, it's not live, right?
That did happen to me, to a neighbor of mine. I was doing one, and this was during it was like towards the end of like real lockdowns and Corona. Like people were getting together, but not like. And I was doing a virtual thing, but it was supposed to be at someone's house, and like we were supposed to be sitting, like me and these two other rabbis, like in Cleveland, we're supposed to be sitting on and I'm like standing outside of my house or something, and one of my neighbors texts me, he's like, "Get back inside. My wife thinks you're 4 blocks away." Like I don't care. Oh,
So so we were middle of Mincha by the Goethe Convention, which it was in Borough Park and some bunker down there where we were recording, and it was all the Gedolim were there. Rabbi Yossi was there, and name all the Moetzes. Middle of Mincha, everyone's taking a long time because it's a very holy Mincha there, and in walks Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan, wearing steel toe boots, like jeans with definitely a rip in one of the legs, a sweatshirt that may or may not have blood on the sleeve, and a baseball cap.
I was coming from work,
and then everyone's like, "The garbage is over. You're taking out the You're taking out the garbage." And like no.
Someone did ask me.
He's
something
on
like
my
that, like-
He's on my panel.
Someone did ask me something like that over there. They were like, they're bringing the food in over there.
So you said you're coming from work. What do you do for work?
Oh, it depends on the time of day.
You like that segue?
Yeah.
Sick segue,
That was very
Nafi.
good. It was very well done. That was very well done.
Thank you. I didn't plan that at 3 a.m.
So I don't have that much type of that work anymore as much because there's no real pulling it off anymore because people know who I am.
Yeah.
So like I walk in a baseball, they're like, "Oh, you're in the baseball cap now. Is there someone here?" I'm like, "All right, just no."
So what exactly were you?
So within that, I mean, it tends to be. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna lie.
You're bounty
I
hunter.
tend to dress like that a lot,
Yeah.
even when I'm not working. But so it depends on the time of day. I do many different things. So I still am a mashgiach in a high school in Cleveland. I'm only there like twice a week now. Baruch Hashem, there isn't as much need for my specific skill set. The average Rebbe is doing great. So
Right.
I was like, I'm just sitting here policing the hallways. I might as well do something. So
In recording podcasts
right,
in your
exactly
office.
in my office, right? Yeah, yeah. That is my office, by the way, in the podcast. A lot of people are like, "Is that your office, or did you choose a weird background?"
Yeah,
I'm
people are like,
"No."
"Why do you paint your wall red?"
Yeah. Believe me, that wasn't my choice, and now that wall is gray. I just,
Okay.
well, maybe in the next season we'll get to it. But so I mainly my main day is taken up by phone calls, by counseling, whether it's over Zoom or in person. But private counseling takes up a very good portion of my day. Then writing, speaking, and I love my day. My schedule is like my baby, which is why traveling is really, really hard for me.
You calendar your day like pretty well.
Yeah. I'm very into
This guy over here, he taught me. I was not like this. I used to wake up in the morning and I'm like a free spirit. Like, where is the wind gonna blow me today? This guy over here, Momo Bauman, he's like, you cannot call me at 10:05 if on the calendar you're supposed to call me at 10:07.
right.
No, you could call me at 10:05. You just won't.
Won't get
Yeah,
there.
you won't
Yeah.
get answered.
But he is calendar, and it changed my life, and I calendar everything now.
So I have. I didn't bring my bag with me. My friend just dropped me off. I didn't bring my bag with me. I'd show you. I have both in my phone. I'm going to read to you a quote. So I'm looking at my phone right now. Both in my phone and on a physical calendar. I have like an actual written thing because I keep that in front of me, and then I could just keep referencing it.
So you're also a secretary of a school.
So I am my own secretary. I am. I was playing around with the idea, but I can't go up to that place of having a secretary. But sometimes I respond as if you got a response that it was my secretary.
By the way,
was.
that's the move. Hi, how can I reach Nachi? You can send him an email
You can send
at
him an email.
Nachi at Meaningful
Yeah. So I have a very like sort of, it's not strict schedule, but necessary schedule. One of the reasons that happened that I got so crazy about it, and we're gonna get into like a lot of this. A lot of this I think is gonna end up being based around my schedule. But I was reading this book, I forgot his name, but it's called The War of Art, and he happens to be actually
The Art of War, right?
yeah. So it's based on like it's a play on the art of war.
It's a play on that.
Yeah, so that's Sun Tzu, I think that's his name. But this is Stephen Pressman, I think, something like that.
Sounds like a name.
Someone's
I would
going to
write a
yell at
book.
me about some, And
Should I fact check you?
and
Or
yeah, go
no?
for it. Yeah, I would love to say his real name. I don't. And not that I'm plugging the book. No one, you don't have to read the book. But actually, Rabbi from Baltimore. I'm so bad with names. It was on the app.
Horowitz.
Rabbi Horowitz.
Yeah.
So he actually reached out to me after he saw me post. I actually post this quote on the app. He reached out to me and he's like, not only is Stephen, amazing writer and this and that. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. He wrote a few unbelievable novels. He was like, he's a Jew and he's a proud Jew. He's like a real Jew. He wrote books on Israel. He wrote books on like Pressfield, right? Yeah. So anyway, I read this quote from him and it just really hit because I struggled with this a lot. He said, what I know, there's a secret that real writers know that wannabe writers don't. And the secret is this. It's not the writing part that's hard. What's hard is sitting down to write. What keeps us from sitting down is resistance, resistance is what the book is about. But that idea, he explains his writing process of what he does. And you can apply this to anything. I just applied it to everything, which is that he comes into his office and he has his set time, comes into his office, he sits down and he writes for 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is. And then he's done. Like that's his writing time of the day. Then he goes about his day. And he says, sometimes it's garbage. Sometimes what I come out with is absolutely nothing. Right. And sometimes it's everything. But that's how you write. That's how you create. That's how you have to live life, is that you just sit down and do it. What keeps so much of us back in life is just not sitting down and doing it. So whether it's raising your kids or shalom bayis or learning or anything, it's just going and actually doing it. We have these grandiose, crazy ideas in our head of like these big end games that I have to get to and these big goals I'm very against goals. These big goals I have to get to and these big, just schedule it and sit down and do it. So I bring it up because my schedule is very, very important, but I even have, and it sounds very indulgent, but when you actually, people are like, I need more hours in my day. Like, no, you don't. You just need to actually do your day. Nice. You need to actually live your day. If you lived your day, you would have no problem. And if you live your day smart, so I'm not going to say what time I get up, but if you go to sleep, if you go to sleep early enough, if you don't do your productive time, like your time from like 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. every night, and instead you nix all of that and you give it to sleep and you wake up really early, you'll actually have this crazy chunk of a day that never existed beforehand, that no kids are awake. Well, my kids end up being awake, but no kids are awake. No phone calls are coming in. No one's trying to bother you. No stores are open. You can't do anything but all of that stuff that you really want to do. Right. So if you want to work out, if you want to write, if you want to learn, if you want to have an extra seder, if you want to have anything, you're going to, by the time you're done davening shacharis, and this is the greatest feeling ever, and it's, brought down about David HaMelech, and it's so killer true. If when you're done shacharis, the rest of the world is still waking up, you feel your self-esteem is through the roof, your confidence is through the roof. You feel like today is about to be the greatest day ever. You feel like I'm about to control everything that happens to me today. It's going to be amazing. And when I don't control everything today, it's also fine because I already did it. I already got my hit for today of me being me, of me living my life. I did that already.
You started the day for you.
Yeah. So once I did, and that's the concept of real like self-care.
Yeah.
Like, people use that as like a it's this tagline that people
like go
like
to Bora, or just wake up 2 hours
exactly.
earlier.
Vacation is self-care. Sitting on your couch is self-care. Taking yourself out for coffee. So that's not self-care. That's not the real concept of self-care at all. Real self-care is doing very difficult things for yourself just because it's going to help you. So if it's exercise, if it's going to therapy, if it's journaling, if it's any of those, learning, if it's anything that is for you only, that's self-care. And it does this crazy thing in our subconscious mind where we feel so much better about who we are. And when we feel better about who we are, we present our day and our life and ourselves to everyone so differently.
So interesting. Yes, it happened to yesterday. So me and my wife had this discussion. Like we gotta start getting up earlier. We don't want to wake up when our daughter wakes up because then the day is just like getting her ready and getting lunches and school and everything. And then before you know it, it's already middle of the day.
Right.
So we said, okay, we're gonna let's wake up an hour before our daughter wakes up. And yesterday, we did that, and it was literally it was amazing to be able to daven and know my phone is not blowing up.
Right.
And my father's a writer. He writes at 5 a.m.
Right.
When nobody in the world can reach him.
That's
when you get the things done. And I felt by 9 a.m. That day, I felt like I completed a full day already.
Mm-hmm. I when I started doing it a while back, I'll never forget the amount of times I would look over. I'm like, it's 8:30. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with the rest of my day, really. Like, and like, it sounds indulgent, but that's why I brought it up. I have scheduled into my day like research time, which is something my whole life I've always wanted. And it's
So
like,
you speak a lot. It's good to know.
No,
It's-
so that's the
yeah.
thing, is that like, it's like 2 hours, but it's any research I want.
Really?
It's anything I want
So it's
to
like going back to college.
anything I want to know about. So it could be, and it always comes in that I'm going to use it, but it could be anything to like, I've always wanted to know how whales live in Antarctica and don't freeze to death. I don't know, like whatever crazy
How
thing.
do
I have a
whales
whole
live in
list.
Antarctica
I haven't
without
gotten to that
freezing?
part of the list yet.
Crazy, right?
But I have a whole list of researching so many things.
That's awesome.
And it is one of the best parts of my day, is just sitting down and being able to do that research. First of all, it has enriched everything of what I do. And I'm a little bit of a information junkie on stuff like that. I love learning that type of stuff. So I have that scheduled into the day. And when that comes up, and in the beginning, back when I started this, I used to feel really guilty about it. I'm like, this is super indulgent. Like, you have nothing better to do right now than to research and to like, but in reality, it was like, no, I really don't. I did it already. I did all that stuff already. And the other thing, that client that I have, or that, private session that I have, whatever it is, that's not till 3:00. So I don't have anything to do right now. And I did my learning of the day. I really have nothing. I'm nothing going.
Oh,
So-
that sounds nice, no?
I love it. Yeah. Sometimes what I do is I fuse what you're talking about with research, with connecting with my kids.
Yeah.
So periodically, my kids will be like asking me like a random question.
It is
Like,
the greatest
right?
thing you could do.
We were driving on the Verrazano Bridge, and my 7-year-old son,
Legend. He's a legend, by
he's
the
a
way.
legend. He's like, Daddy, how do they build the bridge? Like when there's no bridge, like how do they put the bridge here?
Great question.
It's a great question,
It
right?
is.
So we're like, you know what? We're gonna do research together. And like the next Sunday, actually a few Sundays passed, and he's like, "Oh, Daddy, we have to do that research." Like it's on
That's
his mind.
amazing.
And finally, one Sunday, we built it in, and we sat down and we researched how
That's
they build
incredible.
bridges.
That's so incredible, because also, first of all, you take the kids seriously. The kid's like, oh, wow, like that was a good question. Like they take them
Yeah.
seriously, and you're actually doing this beautiful bonding thing over something that you can learn so much from. Rav Noach Orlowick, I remember him saying to me one time that you should, to bond with your kids, read anything. Doesn't matter, the silliest book, it doesn't matter. Read anything. He said, get them used to bonding experience over something with pages, and they'll end up learning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they feel warmth around something that has, we have, unfortunately, so many kids who don't feel warmth around things with pages. Like when you give them that, so if you give them that in research, if you give them that in, also it gives them, and this is why I love researching specifically with my kids, is it gives them this idea of, it gives them this empowerment towards a question. There are people that live their entire lives with questions. I used to meet these people in Israel all the time. This guy would come in and be like, well, I don't believe in God because blah, 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 whatever. He had some question. I'm like, listen, you just walked into the halls where they talk about this all day long. Like, you're not alone on a subway having thought of that. And now I don't have to believe. Like, you need to understand something. That answer is super easy and it's everywhere. And I advise you not to get it yet, because you've been living with this question. They did a study, I think it was the University of Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, I don't remember where. They did a study once of people who were told that they're terminally ill. They had 3 months to live. It wasn't done on purpose. I hope it wasn't done on purpose. And then they were called back and told that it was a misdiagnosis and they're fine and they're going to live for a long time. And the reaction was mind-blowing. Like, you would think joy or, relief, just so many different reactions a person would have. The most common psychological and emotional reaction was depression. And psychologists were baffled by it. And they did study after study, and they found out that when a person, Khalila, gets told that they're going to die in 3 months, that they only have, they become death. That's what they eat, live, breathe, talk about. That's all they are, is a person who is about to die. And when that happens, it takes over their identity. When you take that away from them, their whole identity, their whole core was just taken from them.
Wow.
It doesn't just get replaced with anything. It's empty now. That is a hole for depression to fill in. Anything can come in there and fill it in. The most common thing to come in would be depression. So when a person lives through a question, lives with like, oh, I don't know why this happens or why Hashem did it or why, and then they live with that and live with that and live with that, it becomes part of their identity.
Wow.
If you just rip it away from them too fast, they're not left with, oh, wow, now I believe in Hashem. It never happens. You have to give them life. You have to give them so much. So I want my kids to know that, and I tell this to my students also, if you have a question that the rabbis couldn't answer and no one can answer, now you found your Tafkid HaChaim. It's on you. Go find an answer.
Wow.
I'm saying, or Victor Miller, Lawrence Kellerman, I don't know, all of these people, the Rambam, right? It wasn't like, he asked these questions. It was like, all right, it doesn't seem to be in any of these writings. They went out and did it. Like now you know what your point is, what your purpose is to answer that question. But we kids, especially nowadays, but even I think when I was growing up, we were sidelined to everything's done, everything's figured out already. You're not going to make any difference. Don't make any difference. I mean, look at even you guys, right? Nachi, with this, right? No one would ever thought like, splicing up a clip of something that would really turn into, and even when the app started, people were like, no one's going to download it. Right? There's always going to be deniers and always going to be, you have to believe in yourself. There's going to be a point where if you don't believe in yourself to answer your questions, to do your thing, no one's going to do it for you.
Wow.
And you're going to fall. Yeah. You're going to be a number.
We obviously want to unpack a little bit more about what you do with today's youth and the challenges.
Sorry, I'm super early.
No. But before you
I don't stick to anything.
I wanted to unpack something that you said, just like you threw it in there, but I thought it was provocative. You said that you are against setting goals.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. A goal, I mean, I'm not against them. The goal should be obvious. If I started learning something, it's because I want to finish it. We hyper-focus on that goal.
It's not a
finish. The point
of
this,
right.
The point of this is to finish. That's not the point. That's so not the point. The point of it is to be there every day and do it. And that starts off in a very different place than someone who has a goal. Someone who has a goal will come in the first day and try to get as much of it done as possible. And you're going to burn out from that. Whereas somebody who has the goal of doing it every day is going to show up and not do it the first day. So learning is an easy one. Exercise or working out is an easy one. If you just go to a gym every day and you don't work out, you just show up and walk around for 10 minutes and then go back home. And then the next day you show up and do that again. But then the next day you lift 2 weights and then go back home. The odds on you being in shape or being healthier in a year are much higher than the guy who goes to the gym and kills it that first day, kills it that second day, and then never shows up again.
That's so important. That is so awesome.
It's resistance. What he refers
to
as
resistance. Is that proven? Is that true?
We call the Yetzer Hara. It is. It's for sure true. I don't know. It's done through studies. I don't have them in front of me, but it's done through studies. He speaks about it in Atomic Habits, James Clear, but even without all of that, in Torah and learning, this is the way we've started recently, very recently, to subsequent learning and value learning by the hours involved in it. And that was never a thing beforehand. It was just something every Yid did. And that's why I love, daily learning in Chavetz Chaim, or, is that you start getting into the cycle of it, that like, this is all I'm going to learn. And some people are like, oh, I could do day 2. Like, don't do day 2. Right. Don't do day 2, because today's day 1. Go do something else now. Go live your life. This isn't the only great thing you're going to do today.
Yeah, I think MDY has a phrase. It's not about the daf. It's about the
Yaimi.
Yeah,
that is exactly what I'm talking about. That is a great line. I heard that from him also. That was amazing, right? Stefanski. It's not about the daf. It's about the Yaimi. It is so true. How many people worried about the daf? And because if it's about the daf is the perfect example. Thank you. That's a perfect example. Yeah. If it's about the daf and you miss 2 daf, you give up. If it's about the Yaimi, if it's about just showing up every day, there's no what do you call it? And yes, you still get to go to the CMSHAs.
Yeah, no, but it's great because I've been on Zoom with MDY, and it's like some guys are sitting there with the Gemara, some guys are driving in their car, and it doesn't matter whether you're sitting there with the Gemara or driving a car. Right. They're showing up to something,
right?
And that's what's important.
Right. And it's so easy to beat ourselves up. I'm just driving the car. I'm just like,
no, but yeah, you're showing up to it. I feel like there's an example that's jumping in my head, and I wonder if it's connected at all. But Stephen Curry, for example, one of the best shooters of all time in basketball, he gets onto the court. You'd think the first thing he'll do is start hitting half-court shots, working on his three-pointer. He hit the most three-pointers in NBA history. He's going to just start shooting a 3. he starts right under the basket and he starts shooting a shot that probably any of us could hit on an NBA court a million times.
Really?
Just like throwing it in. And psychologically seeing the ball go through.
Really?
It's all about visualization at that point.
Yeah.
And then he moves back a little bit and he moves back a little bit, but he needs to see the ball go through 1,000 times on game day in order to feel confident that any shot he's going to take is going to go through. Because once you see the ball hitting the bottom of that net, it's like, in his own words, he believes every single shot he's going to take is going to go in.
Right.
Because that's what he's seen over and over again.
Right.
And it doesn't matter about the degree of difficulty in which it happened. So like applied to us, I think it's just like you said, just show up.
Right.
And even if it's like an easy task, just do it a million times. And that's how you become proficient in something probably.
This has been proven that when we do something different, our subconscious rewards us with a dopamine output and just doing something different. So if you normally came out of this building and walked down the block that way to go home, and instead you took the long way home, you're going to feel better when you get home because you did something different.
Daredevil.
It's because you used your bechira. It's bechira. I use my free will. I didn't just by rote get home. I use my bechira. Now we're on such like this crazy place of bechira that even that's going to give us something. But using my bechira every single day to choose up again that I'm going to sit down for this again. I'm going to make time. I'm going to make space for this again. I'm going to do this again. The problem is that we wait for resistance is the Yetzer Hara, but we wait for the inspiration. We wait for the time. We wait for the moment. We wait for the right. We've become, especially as Jews, we've become perfectionists.
Yeah.
And it's debilitating. I'm a recovering perfectionist. First of all, it is the most freeing thing to be a recovering perfectionist. When you do let go of perfectionism.
Do you like color outside the lines? And be like,
I'm telling you, I leave certain things not clean in my house on purpose.
Your wife loves that.
Like I'll leave dishes till the next day. And it bugs me, but
you're
like
saying in prior you would clean everything.
Yeah, because that's how I go to sleep.
And your wife is like, I don't know what happened to him. He used to clean everything, you know.
It used to be a lot more helpful.
My wife and I did a paint night once, and we painted done better than perfect.
Oh wow!
And it's up in my office.
I love that. But this comes into like so many different things. So for instance, my brother Ari is a phenomenal artist. I don't know if you know this about him.
Yeah, you both are cartoonists,
right? So. That's the thing. He's amazing. Like he's professional level. I doodle.
Yeah.
And the reason I doodle, this is true, is going to be very vulnerable here for a minute. The reason I doodle is because older by quite a few years. A lot of people come out like, are you guys twins? And we're like, yeah, it was a 4-year labor, but yeah. He's older than me by a few years. And having a brother that was that good at drawing, it was just like, I'm never going to be that good. So I was focusing, as a kid, I would focus on his art, which was fantastic. And I never took into account as a kid that like I'm younger than him and I never allowed it to. So painting, for instance, is something I love art. And I've always wanted to make my own painting or make my own. I never got into it because of this reason, because
you felt like you'd never be good enough.
It's never going to be perfect. And you have to learn so many things, and you have to practice in painting. You have to practice brush strokes. You have to understand texture. You have to understand, and I couldn't have an imperfect painting, and it would drive me crazy. So many different things. Even sports was rough for me. You know, playing basketball or doing anything like that, because you have to do it and be bad at it for X amount of time. Before you're good at it. And I couldn't allow that bad space to exist. And a therapist one time explained this to me. I had this
David Lieberman.
What's that?
David Lieberman.
Nah, David Lieberman explained to me something else actually about writing. He's a phenomenal human being. He will drop like little things.
I was with him Pesach once, and Ari was there, and we were just sitting like late night. It was me, my wife, Ari, and his wife, and just a couple other people. And he's talking about what a psychopath is, and we're like, am I a psychopath? Am I a psychopath?
He will just drop these unbelievable nuggets of wisdom that are like mind blowing. So, but this therapist explained it to me one time. It was that on one side of the spectrum, I had shame, and the other side I had confidence. And my issue was I had no middle ground. So either I was going to be shamed in something or I was confident in it. So I couldn't play basketball in front of anyone, for instance, but I could speak in front of 1,000 people and not have an issue because I was confident there and shamed over here. And none of it was based on any sort of reality. It was just the way it was in my brain. And once I realized that, I was able to do things pull away from that and say, no, I'm here and I'm alive doing that. I can do that thing and be like, my whole life opened up because the perfectionism stopped having a hold in that way.
It's amazing.
And it was incredible.
That's really cool because, like, you know, when you think of perfectionism, you think, maybe I think about it as like, oh, people just want to do things perfect, but you don't think about it in the way of like, well, people who are perfectionists avoid doing many things because they can't.
They don't do anything.
And that's very.
So even a perfectionist that gets something done, to give you a peek into the eye of a perfectionist, right? People first of all, it's like a pet peeve of mine when people, although I do it also, when people like overuse actual terms.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, I'm so OCD. I'm like, stop that. No, you're not.
Yeah, right.
No, you're not. And there are people that suffer horrors in their life
100%
for being OCD, and you like this table to be really clean. That's not OCD, okay? That's really not OCD. So please stop saying that. And I don't mean to be like, whoa, like you don't use the right terms for the right things, but like certain things are just insensitive.
And we throw we throw this around a lot. Someone who's skinny, oh, that person's anorexic.
That's
like,
yeah.
That is an actual
Yeah. Any eating disorder overused like that is horrific.
People, let's normalize not diagnosing people and yourself.
Yeah. Everyone's mother that they don't get along with is a narcissist.
Well, that might be true.
Everyone. So tends to be narcissism looks a lot like parenting nowadays,
right?
So but people are like, I'm a perfectionist because I like things to. No, that's not perfectionism. Perfectionism infects you. So if you cleaned your house and it's perfect, all you can think about is that your car is not clean.
Right.
It doesn't stop. It never ends. And it'll go to the craziest of levels. So if it's your car's clean, your house is clean, and it's like, I need to lose weight. I don't know. I need to, like, you go to like places and then you get to places that you can't even do anything about. You're like, I really need to live in a different city.
Right.
Because then it'll be sunny outside and my house is clean. Then the sun, you'll drive yourself and it'll drive you. It's never happy. It's never satisfied. And it's definitely never perfect. So you learn, if you have perfectionism, you have this learned ability to just give up on everything. You just don't do anything.
Learn failure.
Because it's never going to be perfect.
And I'm curious because I'm really like skeptical to say this because I don't know. I think it is with you. But I think I heard you once say that you're dyslexic.
I am.
And so how does that dyslexia with perfectionism? That's like,
oh yeah,
that's like a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I got right smart, right quick. I started remembering things in class, so I don't have to read. So first of all, let me just preempt this. I got a diagnosis for dyslexia many years into my life. Like I was like 23.
Okay.
And so
which is probably a great thing, right?
It was also because it also wasn't it's not severe. It's not, it's just, it takes, and not only that, someone like just recently, not recently, about 8 years ago or something, I actually learned properly how I need to read. So it's about blocking words and stuff. And I actually started being able to read again. And it's phenomenal. Like,
so there was a period of time where you just weren't reading.
It's not reading, but my books, a book that I was reading, any type of book that I was reading, my svarm I like do on a table. I'm laying on a couch, but like if I'm holding something with me, or like a book like that Prescott, but like Pressfield book, it's they're like worn down, and they're like, and everyone's like, wow, you read that book a lot of times. I'm like, actually, I haven't finished it yet. Like, it just takes a really long time. It would take a really long time for me to read. And then once I learned how to read, it was a lot easier. I was able to retain information a lot better. Part of my dyslexia was that I would be like 3 pages later. I'm like, I have no clue what it said on the past 3 pages. I was just focusing on reading it.
Shoot.
I don't know what it said. I would have to go back. It was very disheartening. It was very, very, very disheartening. I'm a visual learner, and growing up, there was no visual anything.
Right.
They didn't have visual learning. But yeah, I was, I think my mom always maybe knew. I don't know.
She always knew.
I like,
it was like
she
a Thomas
used to
Edison
teach me
situation
when I had issues in school. So she would teach me. She always gave me books. She loved to read. My house growing up was full of books, just everywhere. And she took over our literature education as kids because we went to a yeshiva, and it just wasn't. And she's very into us being worldly and knowledgeable. So she always gave me books like The Three Musketeers. I don't know, like it was like one of my favorite books as a little kid was The Three Musketeers. And but it would take me a really long time to read them, but I loved it. I loved reading. So that was a big problem for me.
Right.
A lot of people who are dyslexic just don't like reading anyway, or because of it. So, but I loved reading. It it just took a really long time.
We'll be right back to this episode with Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan, but first, a word from our friends.
Welcome back.
Oh, you're a little bit late on that
Well,
one.
I'm very late.
Yeah, are you okay? You're also late to the office this morning.
Whoa.
Oh,
Whoa.
called out. Called
Whoa.
out. Yeah, that was a nice cheap shot, but you deserve it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because you're a calendar yid. You gotta keep by your calendar.
Saying good.
Our spotlight for today is a fine man named Uriel Lemel from Touro University. Tell us a little about Uriel. Hello.
So yeah, Uriel Lemel, he's no Lemela. He
Oh,
founder.
is he a lemmer? Does he have a good voice?
Very deep. He's the founder of Winit, which is an app and a company that helps individuals that may have received a ticket.
Oh, and we've all been there. We've all
been
received
there.
tickets, yeah.
Right? Like driving around the city, driving around Brooklyn.
Or jaywalking. You ever get that ticket like slapped on your back?
It's a lot. It's a
Very
lot.
embarrassing.
So, especially with all the cameras that are out there, with the radar
gosh,
and the
yeah.
cameras, and a lot of them malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And Winit knows how to navigate the system. It's been very opaque.
Yeah.
And here's a guy who
opaque.
went to Touro University, and he attributes a lot of the structural thinking, mathematical thinking that he's developed to Touro University. And he shares about this in his interview.
And Touro University is really just saving people millions of dollars a year because of not paying for parking tickets.
It's
because
true.
they educated Uriel. And also they're eating well because they educated Naomi Nachman. And there's just so many people that Touro University is responsible for just being amazing people and having an impact in the world. So that's why you need to just stop what you're doing and say, you know what? It's time. I am going to head to Touro.edu and I'm going to see.
And I'm going to get some more.
And I'm going to get some more, of course, because when you go to Touro, you get more.
Yeah.
More of what? More of everything. Hopefully not more tickets, more education. Now back to this episode. Back to the attire for a second, the hat, the sweatshirt, the jeans, the boots.
Wow, you really make me talk about it. Fine.
No, I'm so I feel like if I had to sum up based on what I know about what you did, I would say you were like a bounty hunter for kids who are struggling.
Right. Officially,
and
it's
you're
called
not
an
taking
interventionist.
Yeah, interventionist or a bounty hunter.
Tomato.
I don't know what the bounty's like, but the hunting sure is fun.
Bounty was not that good. Just
So I know you wrote a column on mashgiach for quite a while, and it was one of my favorite reads. But just to hear some of these stories, if you could sort of give an example of what the interventionist, what that looks like through a story of yours,
So
what would that be?
Especially to a lot of people, most of these issues, most of family issues, I won't say most, but a good portion it's not bad parenting and it's not miseducation. A lot of times it is miseducation, and this will get me in trouble. A lot of times it is miseducation, but in the wrong direction. Like we feel that awareness is the most important thing, and awareness is super important. But it's like, they say practice makes perfect. So no, it doesn't. Practice does not make perfect at all. Bad practice is going to make you worse. Good practice is going to make you perfect, or as close to it as you can get. But bad practice is just going to get you into a cycle of doing it bad. So when we have awareness out there, and everyone's like all about awareness, like let everyone know. We're not going to say the date, right? We're not telling people while we're recording right now.
Yes,
So
no.
I'm right after this. I have to actually go to somewhere. And be Menachem Avel, the kid who just passed and didn't make it, and it was involved in this type of field, and that's pretty sure that's what happened. Anyway, so awareness, like people want to say that, like, oh, we have to tell everyone about this kid, and we have to tell people that it exists. But what we tend to do with that is it's just fear mongering. We're just spreading fear. It's like the news or anything else. People yell at me all the time. I don't watch the news. I don't know anything that's going on in the world. I barely know anything. I figure if it's important, I'm going to find out. I always find out.
On your drive from Cleveland to New York,
exactly,
it'll hit you at some point.
Exactly, yeah. I find out 20 minutes later. That's what happens. There were a few times that I was like, what are you talking about? And it was somehow I missed it for days.
Like the dress code by the Aguda.
I didn't get the email, yeah. I know I'd be sitting in class and my students will tell me something's going on. And I'll be like, what? They're like, Rabbi, no. This is like a week ago, but okay,
Yeah.
But people yell at me all the time. You have to know what's going on. You have to know what's going on. I don't think that. I've asked Rabbi Berkowitz about this a few times, and he said, no, you don't. You actually don't have to.
And that's intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't see. I see it as just fear mongering. When COVID happened and BLM, like all this stuff was going down, and everyone's like, we're moving to Israel.
Yeah,
that's it. We're moving to Israel. I'm like, this is just you're moving to Israel because you're afraid of here. You know what happens to people who move to Israel because they're afraid of America? They really don't like Israel that
In
much.
the back here, probably.
Yeah, it does not usually end up that well. I'm not saying there's no exception to that rule, but it usually does not end up that way. If you want to move there because I lived there for years. You move there because you have a passion to move there, but not because fear-mongering ends no one anywhere. I'll have mothers calling me all the time like, my son is showing signs of like rebellion in class, and these are real phone calls. And I'm not downplaying it. I understand why they're doing it. My son is acting out, and I know drugs is just around the corner. I was like, all right, let's rewind. How old's your son? He's 6. I'm like, all right, no, it's not, right? So drugs are not around the corner unless you're leaving drugs around your house. I don't know what to tell you, but
literally around
that's
the corner.
not what's around the corner. So it's not. I don't know what you're talking about, like. But with all this fear mongering, now there's a fine line between fear mongering and awareness. Awareness is super important, but it has to be done correctly. It's not just an email blast of everyone's dying. So people ask me all the time, in this field, they're like, what's the solution to all of these kids? Like everyone's going off the derech. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. That's just not true. Mm-hmm. Not every kid is going off the derech. It's not true.
Can you model that distinction between generating awareness and fear mongering?
Yeah. So awareness, like anything, happens hard. Fear mongering happens easily. It's a information solution as opposed to information, plan, work, solution. So information solution works like this. I blast out an email or I put up a clip. All these kids are going off. Everyone's dying. We have to do something about this. Whatever. And people are watching this on their phone, on a couch, having a coffee, and they're like, "That's it. I'm never letting my kid go to his friend's house ever again." Like,
yeah,
you solved the problem. No, you didn't. You just created a whole slew of new problems, and your kid's going to be like, you're crazy, and just now you're parenting out of fear. And this is just one example. They're parenting out of fear. You're constantly checking your kid's phone and checking this and checking that, as opposed to building a relationship. Now, what's the actual? So information. Wow, there's a problem out there. Okay, we have to do something about this. What am I going to do about this? I'm not going to lock my kid in a basement, right? That would be an immediate solution, but that's not actually going to do anything. I'm going to develop, I see the need now to develop a much deeper relationship with my child than I might have needed before I had this information. I need to work through this a lot better. I need to read a book. I need to take a course. I need to go somewhere with my kid that we have interaction that's positive, that he can talk to me, that he can open up to me, that he can, and slowly, now that parent hears the same information a few months later, and it's like, wow, I feel really bad for those people. I should say Tehillim for them. There's no worry anymore because they have the backup. Mm-hmm. They're sitting there with their kid. Their kid came to them about stuff already. Their kid opened up about stuff already. They're like, Baruch Hashem, I have this relationship and I have to deepen. That never ends. I've never done that relationship, but I'm a lot calmer about it. The fear just leads to that other thing. So the reason I bring this up is because when I was doing that, that was my last attempt at trying to, when I was doing that, I found that so much of the discrepancies and disagreements in a family, not all, obviously, there's extreme situations that you can't, but so much of it were just people not being able to respect, connect, and communicate and, wash, rinse, and repeat. And when I walk in, because I've seen this 100 times, when I walk in as Rabbi Yossi into a meeting with a kid or even an adult, and I'm being brought in by someone. You're always being brought in by someone. And this is one of the reasons why I never became an actual therapist or, full-blown social worker or psychologist or anything like that, was because the way I knew how to work, the way I did it, was not in that formal setting, which is a super important setting. I mean, it's very important. I'm not taking away from that. It was just not my way of how I was working with people. And I was supplementing their therapy. I wasn't taking the place of their therapy.
What was your way of doing things?
So I would start with building a relationship with both sides. So if, let's say you have a parent who are like, from good Jews and a lot of times, especially if they're older parents, they don't trust the average psychologist. They don't trust the average, they're like, oh, they're a bunch of quacks, they're a bunch of this, they're a bunch of that, and they, they're trying to take the kids away from the parents, and everyone has their view, and no one's right about any of it. Neither side is right. It's just not, any extreme is just not gonna be right. So I I would come in and speak to them. So like if I'm speaking to the father first and he's a learned guy, went to Yeshiva, so went to what he called, we would start discussing something like that in a from way. And everything I would tell him is based on something from Rabbi Berkowitz, something, if he's deeper Yeshiva, something from Rav Asher Rubinstein, my other Rebbe.
You speak their language.
You speak their language. I talk to him, and it's not in a conniving way. I'm really trying to understand where he's coming from. And I've never met a parent who doesn't want the best for their kid. Like they do want but they're trying to help the kid. They're not understanding the kid. Then when you go to the kid, it's like, this is a guy who's been sent. If I'm a rabbi, this is a guy and I just refer to it as kid because it's an inner child thing that I refer to, but it could be an adult that I'm talking to. This is a guy who's being sent to me by my ex, whatever, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my father, mother, my wife, my whatever. That's my parents.
X, like fill in the blank.
X fill in the blank, not my ex. Mm-hmm. That would really put me in.
We're not going to dig into your past.
Right. And that's being sent to me by this person, by Plony. And that person's belief system is whatever. And they're just getting this guy to come and fix me. I need to remove as many of those barriers as quickly as possible if I'm going to get this done. And when I show up as rabbi with the soup bowl yarmulke and everything, it just doesn't. If I come in as Yossi dressed how most of the time I dress anyway.
Just like you just went hunting.
And I come in and I'm just talking to him about whatever, it goes a lot easier. It really does. It goes a lot easier.
You've had some stories of like real like covert operations. You know, you're in a.
I think I ever wrote about that. Like most of that. A lot of them I couldn't. I love those articles.
You always, you change the names, you change the details, but you know.
I had to change the stories. Not one of those stories is one story.
Right. So if you could say in a way, and you could piece together, what is like the craziest scenario in that career of yours that you had to deal with?
One time, there's a lot of them. Not
one that's like the first one that came to your mind. That's like, yeah, that was
right. That one was crazy.
Or the second one that's crazier than the first one.
No, it's not. I don't. Sometimes I don't like saying where I had to like sometimes go. Usually it's very peaceful. Like people will email me like I know you're so busy and I'm sure you're on a. I'm like no that happens. Like this was also a problem with my schedule. See how I did that one? This is great. Yeah. Nachi and I are playing a game of chess right now. It's perfect.
Guess what? I don't know how to play chess, so we can play checkers if you want.
in my schedule is always like, well, how am I going to get to sleep so early in order to? And you realize like I have these phone calls that like sometimes in the middle of the night after. You realize that like happens like even in the thick of it was happening like once a month. So like the rest of the month I was able to go to, so it's not as often as people are going to make it sound like.
Right.
But one time when I was working, when I was single and I was working in Sfat in like a sort of rehab yeshiva, we had to go down to Tel Aviv to get this kid who went missing from the program. And we had to go down to Tel Aviv to get him. And we weren't sure exactly where he was. And he was an addict of many different substances, but he also was a gambling addict. So that you don't necessarily want to walk into, sort of want him to come back to you because you have no idea who he's sitting there with or what they'll do to anyone coming in trying to take their golden goose away from them. In general, don't walk into drug dealers' houses
just stay home. Don't do any of these things.
It's not, I'm not pro the way I used to do things. I'm just, I went with this other guy to Tel Aviv to pick the kid up. And we came in to this apartment that was like abandoned. It was like during the summer and it was abandoned. And I think till today, the smell of that apartment still haunts my nightmares. It was.
That's why you drink black coffee.
Yeah. It was horrific. And there are people like all over, whatever it is. And I guess it's just a funny story. That's why I chose it. And we finally find the guy. Now, I didn't know the kid. This other guy knew the kid. I didn't know the kid. I met him once or twice, but I didn't. And he had like really long hair and we'll call him Moshe. And I'm like, he was just laying on the floor, just out cold. And like this guy took his pulse and everything. He was okay, but we picked him up and we start walking him out. And he's like, oh, I don't know. It was really dark and everything in there. Put him into the car he goes like, where are we going? He's like, no, don't worry about it. We're going to put him in the car. And we start driving. We get on the highway and then the kid starts speaking in like French. It was French or something. And he looks back and he's like, Yossi, I don't know how to tell you this. Like, what? He's like, that's not him. I'm like, I'm sorry. He's like, that's not him. Looks just like him. That's not him. I'm like, what are you talking about? We just kidnapped someone. He's like, yep. I'm like, where are we taking him? He's like, I don't know. He's like,
French embassy.
Take him back home. I don't know what. Like, where do you take a kid like this? Like,
Throw a croissant at him.
What do you do with him?
Wow.
So we dropped him off. Dropped him off in Beit Shemesh at this other friend of mine who was I can't say any of their names because this guy, whatever, but who was a drug counselor, whatever, and he had like this halfway house in Beit Shemesh at the time, and we dropped that kid off there, and then we went back, and by the time we went back, there were cops at this apartment already. I don't know what they were tipped off to, but they were at the apartment already. So we came up, and Israeli cops are not exactly that. Not friendly, but like if they don't know you, they don't trust you.
Right.
So I came up and I was like, we know the cops here and Tzfat. We tried getting them called. It just wasn't working out and everything. And we couldn't, nothing was working. And they weren't letting us get inside the apartment. They were arresting everyone. They were whatever. So we go out and we're like, all right, it was, at that time it was just like through a night. So like it was already like, breakfast time. So we went for a coffee and we sit down. We're sitting like outside this cafe, like Naaman, having a coffee, and then Wright walks by Moshe. Like, dude, what are you doing? And like, I was like, hey guys, like, where have you been? It's like, lost my phone. And we found Moshe.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's really incredible.
Yeah. This is obviously a really funny story.
Right. They don't end that well.
I don't want to misconstrue any of the humor here as insensitivity.
No, that's how I get through it.
What's the gravity of what you're dealing with in those scenarios.
Yeah, it was very possible to find him not alive or to.
And you also work a lot on mending relationships between.
So that's the real for me. After a while, all of that stuff to cover out, like all that stuff, it loses. Not after a while, fairly quickly, it loses its thrill and its appeal and everything. And really, what gets like there was one story in the mashgiach articles. It's probably one of my favorite stories. And it's just a simple story. It's not that crazy, but it's the mom with the kid with the leather jacket. And it's basically about this kid from a very, very, very Chassidish background, very, very, and he started going his own way. And his mom, there's like one thing, like it's very interesting with parents, myself also, like what we get sensitive to. Like I'll be talking to one of my kids, Rebbeim, and be like, and he does this thing, and he's like, really, that's what you're like, really that thing? Like, but it has something to do with our background, our inner child, but she was like, he keeps saying like everything's cool. She's like, I can't deal with this. Like she was speaking like half in Yiddish, half in English. She's like, can't deal with this cool. Everything's cool. It's cool. It's like, who told him how to talk like this? Cool. And it was always her. So he was in Israel in a yeshiva, and he was doing pretty well. And I was really working on, because I really believe in this. Anyone who's trying to take kids away from their parents or to distance kids from their parents, obviously barring extreme circumstances, you're not doing anyone a favor. If you think you're going to adopt this kid and do better than his parents are going to do, you're not only wrong, you're very, very detrimental to everybody involved. You're very damaging. The best case scenario is to reestablish a relationship between the parents and the kid. That is the best you can possibly do. If you could do that, everything else can work out. Everything else can work out. But if you're going to have him marry a rehab, marry a drug counselor, marry a therapist, marry whatever it is, instead of going there, it is a really bad idea. And unfortunately, that happens a lot when it's not necessary. Obviously, there are extreme circumstances. But like I said, going out at 2 a.m. is going to be once a month. I've ran into it. I ran into it a few times. If the parents are abusive, I'm saying like if there's like real things going on, but if it's not that and it's the average case, you don't need to do that.
It belongs at home. Right?
Yeah. So I was talking to this woman and her husband, and they were going to Israel to see him. And I was living in Israel at the time. I was working with the kid a little bit, and he was doing great. So like I stopped. I didn't need to continue. I'm not a therapist, but a common misconception about therapists that they try to hold on to people.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's very not true.
Because they like billing. Yeah.
Like,
like,
yeah,
that's
they,
not-
they get bored just as much as anyone else. Like they want in and out, and next person. The more people they service, actually, the better their business is, because the more people are out there that they've helped, the more they get referred to. Then that's just better for them. Right. So I stopped working with the kid. He was doing well, and he was in this yeshiva. And the parents called me. They're like, "We're coming to visit. You know, what should we know? So I coached them a little bit. We worked through it and everything. And the mother was really the hard head on the whole thing. The father was massive Talmid Chacham and really like full of vush everything, but the sweetest guy ever. And he was just like, he calls me now sometimes. He's like, "Hey, if you're ever in New York, I'd love to get a coffee." Like, not just stam. Like, and he was all on board for anything. And it was inspiring. It was amazing. She could not get past certain things. It just, she said, even if he's not going to be religious, can he dress a certain way? It was just, she couldn't. And I understand her. These things are not easy for people. It's really, really
sometimes
hard.
it's in people's bones, I imagine.
Yeah, it's so much work on yourself.
Right.
To be a parent in general, but then to be a parent like this is so much. These people are tzaddikim, what they have to go through. So she goes and they went out to eat in Ben Yehuda or somewhere. And they're walking by a store, and in the I get all choked up on this one. And in the storefront window was like this like leather jacket, and it was like you couldn't find a more guy jacket. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like Chuck Norris's jacket in like an 80s action movie. Like it was just the most guy jacket you can find. And the kid looks at it and he dropped the line. He goes, "Wow, that's a really cool jacket." And his mother's like, she's like, was cringing inside. She's like, sure enough, they're walking back to the car, and I realized I left my purse in the I think it was fake or not, I don't remember, but she's like, I realized I left my purse in the it was one of the only stories I wrote that were actually full beginning to end. This was the story. She's like, I left my purse in the restaurant. She runs back to get it. As she's walking by the store, she sees the jacket. And she's like, I don't know what came over me. She goes, I went in. She's like, it was a fortune. I couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford the ticket there already. And I was so what he called. And we're buying him all this stuff. She's like, but for some reason, she's like, I just knew. And she bought the jacket, and she had someone leave it for him on his bed when they left, which was also so beautiful because she wasn't even trying to.
It wasn't for her.
Monopolize. Yeah, she was not trying to get anything out of it, and she left it there, and she left. So, and she told me that she bought it for her, and I was like, that is. I'm like, you just turned the major corner. Like, that is gorgeous. Sure enough, I come to the Yeshiva to visit like a few weeks later or whatever. I'm talking to the Rebbe, who's my contact guy over there. I was like, I heard, Maisha's mom, is here and what. I heard you bought him a leather jacket. I'm like, that is. He's like, Yossi, first of all, kid is not taking off the jacket. It's getting a little bit weird. He's like, second of all, he's like, the jacket is nothing. He's like, she wrote a note. I was like, oh no. I've told her beforehand, don't write notes, because she was bad at it. She used to send them to Hillam's, with his name on it, these leather-bound expensive to Hillam's, his name on it, or safer, and a note saying, hopefully this will reach your soul, and I love you. Like, but like, that's sending me as a rabbi. That's what that is. That's that same concept. He's like, Yossi, she wrote a note. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, she ruined everything with the note, but he's wearing the jacket sign. So he's like, oh no. He's like, you got to see this. We go to the kid's room, and it was a Post-it note. And you could tell he put it on his wall by his bed. And the stickiness of the Post-it note didn't last. So there was 4 rolls of tape that he got to make sure it was plastered to that wall. And he's like, read the note. And I go up, and I get choked up easily. I'm not going to lie, but it's a Moroccan in me, but I bawled my eyes out in that room. It said, to Maishala, the coolest kid I know. And I broke so bad, because that was a person really just letting go of everything that they thought was so absolutely important, and allowing And that's the hardest thing that a human being can do, is not do something to change everything and just sit in it and accept it. And to me, that story is so much more than getting into a bar fight or getting tackled by what do you call it, or like anything like that, because that's really what it's about. It again, it loses its. I get emails all the time like, I'm thinking about doing like something similar to what you do, and what do you call it? And I always ask them, I always tell them, do it. Don't think I'm good at this. Like, I was an imposter till I was good at it. That's just how it works. Don't think that you can't do it. Don't think like, go for it. You want to help? Go out and do it. Just realize that there are certain, my Rebbe told me, Rabbi Friedlander, when I got involved in this, he said to me, he's like, there are certain things you need to know about working in this field. He goes, first of all, I think you should do it. He goes, second of all, no one's going to like you. No one's going to thank you. No one's inviting you to their weddings. You're not going to be Masada Kedushin. You're not going to be on any Gedalim cards. No one's going to want to talk to you. No one's going to want to ever admit knowing you.
And they're going to pass you on the street and not even look your way.
He said, your wife and children aren't going to fully understand what you do or why. And you're going to have to balance that out. It's not going to be enough just that, you're doing it. And there's no such thing as making this arrangement with God. I'll take care of your kids if you take care of mine. You still got to take care of your kids. And so on and so forth. I said, he's like, you're never going to get paid enough. You're never going to sleep. You're going to have to go for your own therapy a few times to just get all this, stuff out of your head. I was like, listen, it sounds amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Where do I sign? This
is the greatest sales pitch ever. I was like, so why, So he said, that you'll see. He's like, I can't describe it. He said, but every now and then you're going to come across a case, you're going to come across a thing that you were able to do something in, and it's going to make your life worth living. And I'm not going to start listing names, but
was that one of them? Was that kid with the leather jacket?
That kid, yeah. And there wasn't like that much involvement or that much work or that much late nights with that. It was just regular.
It's also probably seeing somebody who really pushed themselves, that parent,
right?
And like they put on a cape,
right?
And they were a superhero.
They were superhuman at that point, which is what a parent is. But I feel like why that also for me professionally was such a big point was that I did it right that time. The going in, the covert, what do you call it? Those things rarely ever bear fruit. Rarely. Yeah. They're cool stories, but they rarely ever bear fruit. Something like this, I spent the time understanding her, understanding him, understanding the father, and appreciating where they're coming from, not demonizing any side of it, not yelling at them, you got to accept this kid, like understanding that, no, this isn't easy. This is really hard. It's really, really difficult. And these parents, all parents, it's a really hard thing to do. And to come off as someone said to me in one of my articles, they're like, I loved it. They're like, but you came off as like a little bit impatient with the parent. And it was for comic reasons. It was for the comedy of it. My frustration was supposed to be funny, but they were right. I did. And I have definitely been many times insensitive towards the parents more than the kid. But as I get older, I realize like that's the real work is being really understanding of people is superbly important in this. So much more than walking into a bar, like walking into the right place. Most of it, like nowadays, if someone calls in, it's like an emergency. There was a few, but someone calls in, it's like I'm like, call the police.
Yeah.
Like, this is a horrible story. If you want to know a horrible story, this kid, it's not a horrible story. I guess this is the type of awareness I'm talking about. This is what I want people to know. If you have, this kid calls me up, this goes back, but this kid calls me up. He goes, yes, you got to get down here. This guy's overdosing. I'm like, first of all,
call me.
You're like a city over, like where I wasn't living in Cleveland. Like you're like a city over from like, I'm not, he's dying, like call an ambulance, it's like, I can't. I'm like, call the police right now, call an ambulance, go. So, I was younger then. And it wasn't my first, but it was one of the first times I got that call. So you freak out a little bit. So I calmed myself down and instead I was just like, whoa. I'm like, all right, I'm on my way. Where are you? Give me exact, where are you? So he told me, I hung up and I called an ambulance and just sent them over to that address because Then I call him back and I'm like, listen, the ambulance is coming. He's like, no, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? I'm like, you're going to kill this kid. You have to. I'm like, what is wrong with you? What? He's like, what do you mean we can't call an ambulance? Can't go. He's going to get in trouble. I'm like,
He's in trouble.
Dying.
Yeah, he's in trouble.
But then I thought about it. The kid wasn't wrong. He was wrong. Let's be clear. But the kid wasn't wrong. He was more afraid of people finding out that they were using drugs than he was of one of his friends dying. And one of the last things his friends, the kid made it, Baruch Hashem, but one of the last things the kid said to him is, don't call an ambulance. I'll be fine. Don't call an ambulance. Why? He didn't want his parents to know. If that's the relationship, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. The issue is not the drugs. The issue is I've seen so many people, kids, be on drugs and be on this and be on that and have depression and have anorexia and have eating disorders and have what they call, and they pulled out and lived fulfilling, beautiful lives. I've seen that happen.
Because of the relationship.
But it never is going to happen if they can never make that phone call then. If they can't call an ambulance then because they're afraid of their parents, if they can't call their parents then, if their friend, well, I didn't know the kid that was overdosing, if the friend of his has to call this guy, who I met him a bunch of times and we knew each other, if that's who the first person on the list is to call, then that's the issue.
Well, what's the solution? Because just to play devil's advocate, I can't imagine the answer is, well, a parent needs to be okay with everything and tell their kid that, listen, no matter, unless no matter what happens, you call us. Even if you do this and do that and do that, like, what's the solution to that problem?
Is not the
awareness is not approval.
No, yeah. Knowing about it, being able to call mommy and daddy, mommy and papa.
But how does someone
is never right? The way it happens is understanding that, first of all, Rabbi Berkowitz's number one rule of parenting, of a home in general, which I've adopted and I think is like...
I made a drinking game in my head, by the way. Every time you mention Rabbi Berkowitz, I was going to take a shot.
Yeah.
I'm wasted right now.
I do it also to a degree on purpose.
Yeah.
Rabbi Berkowitz and Rav Asher, I'm Rabbi Friedlander. I do to a degree on purpose because I want people to understand, like, these are not, like, this is not me. Yossi Bensoussan never made up anything. I made up plenty, but nothing that I use to help people or to work or to do any of these things. This is all from them. It's all, Rabbi Berkowitz says, and if I was allowed to get a tattoo, it would be this.
Oh my God. If you were allowed to get a tattoo,
whoa,
that's
you gotta have questions like that.
You
gotta have a questionnaire. You ever seen that guy Lipton? Like, he has that questionnaire at the end of his interviews. You gotta have a questionnaire at the end of the interview. Like, what's your go-to almost curse word? Like
interesting.
Yeah, you're like, what's your, Fruchenheimen? Like, what's your, you can ask people.
Is that your neighbor's name?
Fruchenheimen.
That's Fruchthandler? Fruchenheimen?
Yeah. So, Rabbi Berkowitz always says, better to be calm. That is the number one rule. In every situation at home, it's better to be calm. And if you can't be, don't do anything. If it's not calm, don't do anything. What our kids are afraid of is not us being angry at them. It's not us being disappointed in them. It's not us being upset. It's not us even punishing them. The kids thrive on discipline. It's fine. They want to know that we're going to discipline them. That's not the problem. The problem is they think that they're hurting us. They think our lives are going to spiral out of control because of what they're doing. That is not calm. You're not a rock for them.
It's the fear of disappointment.
Yeah. But it's the fear of you being a disappointed parent.
Yeah.
You feeling like, now a lot of people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, believe me, my kid could care less how I feel. Lie.
That's not true.
Lie. I don't care what the kid says.
Scream it from the rooftops. That's not true.
Lie. Absolutely not true. You're believing a 14-year-old. And I don't care how old he is. So I was giving a share one time many years ago, and it was about these ideas, and this woman got up by the question and answer, and she goes, it's nice of you to say it's easy for you because you don't have a kid running around Mechal Shabbos for Hesi in your house, like just. So I was like, actually, that's not true. I do. I have a son that will turn on lights, use phones, specifically, especially if he gets angry and we're like eating. Friday night we're having the Suda, and he gets angry. He'll turn off the lights in the room just to, knowing that we can't turn it back. Like he gets angry and he gets, and she goes, I looked younger and she goes, you have a teenager? So I was like, no, he's 4. but he goes around doing that. And she's like, oh, well, okay, call me when he's 14. I'm like, no. See, that's the point. You're missing it. Why is it not a big deal when my 4-year-old is doing it? Why is that not a big deal? She's like, because he's 4. I'm like, exactly. You're believing that your son is 14, but he's not. He's 4. And I don't care if he's 30. See, he's 14 now. There's something in there that has been there since then and is still being acted on since then. I've sat down with so many adults that have a profession that are really good at what they do, and they even earn very well, and they're respected in their field. And when I sit down to talk to them about one specific topic, they are 5-year-olds.
So age does not equal maturity.
At all. Not maturity across the board.
Right.
We can expect more from an adult. So if what you're talking about is your spouse, right? You're not mothering or fathering or parenting your spouse, but it's still, the knowledge has to be there that this is a very broken, very hurt child in there that is screaming out. I don't care if the words they're saying is, I hate you. That's a 4-year-old saying, I hate you. I wish you weren't my mommy. You're not going to be like, well, that's it. You know, we should put him up for adoption. He doesn't want me to be his mommy. Like, no, what? You're crazy.
And that inner child, presumably that has not gone through that maturation process, needs to be nurtured.
That relationship has to happen then in that way. And depends how old a person is. It can happen in many different, but you know, I know stories of parents who have abandoned their kids, like left. And they'll come back years later. And as an adult, this kid will take the parent back. You know, we don't realize that the ability that children have, the resilience that kids have for people to mess up, to not do well, they have it. We don't have to be perfect. We have to be present. That's the big thing a lot of people miss about this, is that these relationships happen, and I love this idea that relationships happen through stupidity. If you were to, I think we might have said this on the 2 Cents, or I said this somewhere.
Shout out to 2 Cents podcast.
Yeah, 2 Cents podcast.
Season 3 coming soon.
Boom. Hopefully. No, yeah. If I could get Ari to film later. I have nowhere to film now.
You could plug in something into the wall. Yes.
Yeah, I know. So the concept that if you have a 2 people going on a date, right? Shachan sets up two people, go on the date. Girl comes home from the date, calls up to Shachan and is like, I think it was Coach Menachem, I might have said this, calls up to Shachan and is like, yeah, you're crazy. He's crazy. Never happening again. She's like, whoa. She's like, what happened? She's like, what happened? I'll tell you what happened. First date, he proposed. She's like, I'm sorry. He's like, he proposed. He got down on one knee and he proposed. I don't even know where he got a ring from. Did he just carry that around? Like, what is that? The guy's a crazy person.
Didn't Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan do that on his first date?
Oh, man. Okay, Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan was like the exception to every rule ever.
I love Rabbi Bensoussan, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, go on.
So he owes me a painting. Rabbi Bensoussan, if you're listening to this, I'm waiting for the Russia.
Yes.
So
Ooh.
he has the most beautiful painting.
Really?
This painting, I'll talk about it after. Just remind me.
Let's go take it.
I must have been staring at it for 45 minutes, just looking at it.
Really?
My wife was like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I can't stop looking. I'll talk about it in a minute. Anyway, so the shotgun calls up the guy and is like, what happened? He's like, oh, what's the problem? What's the problem? I want to get married. We went out. That's the point, right? I saw her. We got married. And she's like, what are you talking about? You can't. He's like, why not? She's like, you can't propose on a first date. It's not even like. She's like, well, why not? She's like, it's inappropriate in these circles to propose on a first date. That's why. She's like, what am I supposed to do on a first date? She's like, nothing. You do nothing on a first date. You just go. She orders a Diet Coke. You order something, and you just sit there and you talk. You do. And he's like, well, I should ask her about like her life. Like, no, that's even too deep. Like, just nothing. Talk about nothing. And the guy just doesn't. Now we are all laughing at this guy because, like, buddy, a little bit of tact in your life, like a little bit of.
But he's right.
Of course, he's right. But a little bit of. But we do this as parents all the time. We have no relationship with this kid. Proximity does not equal relationship. Physical proximity does not equal emotional proximity. So we have no relationship with this kid. We sit him down and we're like, so tell me about your life. He's like, no. And he's right. Totally inappropriate. What did we do? I birthed him. He's a kid. He doesn't understand any of that. What did we do to earn this conversation? In any other relationship in our life, we would earn this conversation. The perfect example is if Khalila, your nephew was sent to you. Right?
Yeah.
Family you're not that close with, but your nephew was sent to you.
The neighbor's kid or the nephew, yeah.
And he was sent to you and we're like, listen, we're struggling with this kid. Your family's like very happy and very what do you call it? Can you have this kid in? What would you do? There would be no conversation for months. You come like, hey, we made you pizza, we made you, what do you call it? Yeah, what's going on? How's life? Update me on everything. Is your father still crazy? Like all these, like, what do you call it? You would go through so much there.
Small talk.
And be so tolerant and so understanding. And when he didn't want to talk, you wouldn't take it as a personal offense. Like he's in a lot of pain, this kid. Like I could see, like he's shutting down. We would take it in such a different way. When it's our kid, it happens so differently. So we have to build a relationship. And a relationship happens like that first date over stupidity. Playing a game with him. Reading a book, depending on the age.
But the stupidity is necessary.
It's a stupidity. I call it stupidity because you feel like it's stupidity while you're doing it. You're like, this isn't doing anything.
It's a foundation.
It is doing everything. It is doing everything. And the only way to really understand it is put yourself as a child again for 1 minute and imagine your father initiating a card game, a board game, anything with you. Sitting down with you and saying, you want to play a board game? I'm like, I got off work or whatever. I want to have a tea. You know what I'm in the mood of? Settlers of Catan, Jenga, right? I'm in the mood of Jenga right now. You as a little kid are like, what is going on here? Like, do you really want to, you take your kid out for Chinese and you don't ask him about anything. You tell him about your day. He's like, what is going on? Like, does he like me?
Yeah.
Does he respect me? Like, when did this happen that all of a sudden he cares about a kid like that? He's like, wait, I want to tell you about my day also.
They want a relationship.
Yeah.
Do you
I want to talk to you. I want to tell you stuff. Like, this is awesome. And the parent, after doing it and letting go of this, like, am I really parenting him idea, the parent starts doing this crazy concept that has been lost. Or maybe we're never there, I don't know, but just crazy concept, which is enjoying to raise his children.
I was going to say they start liking their kids.
Yeah. Which is this crazy thing. You start not really wanting bedtime as much as you used to want it. Now, you still want your own time, but that's not that you want to get rid of your kids. You just want your own. But you're like, oh man, it's like, and everyone has these moments. I think at some point you're on a Friday night and everyone's around, and it's like early Friday night, everyone's hanging out, and you look around and you're like, I really don't want this night to end. Like everyone's behaving, like everyone's like in the right zone for it. And you're playing a game. You're like, I really don't want this night to end. That's enjoy, and it could be like that. Always. There's going to be tough times, but it could be like that always. And that is going to ensure that, barring, again, extreme circumstances, your kids will never use drugs. And if they do, if they're in a bad situation, they're going to talk to you. They're also going to listen. So when you tell them that's a really bad idea, they're going to listen to that.
Because you have that foundation.
Because you have that foundation. You're not parenting out of fear right now. It's not like just don't do anything.
What age does that start at?
I don't want to say because I found out. And there's a lot of egos. It's if you don't have children yet, so you can start like that starts that there are studies that show that starts in utero.
Really?
Like yeah. It's immediate.
1-year-old, 2-year-old.
It's immediate. But again, kids are resilient. You could repair.
Dr. Lieberman, he said something which I found to be amazing, was your kids can't be an obstacle to your happiness. They need to be the path to your happiness.
Yeah, they're part of it. They're part of it.
I think
You got to figure out how to
also
enjoy
said
it.
something similar. Yeah.
You got to figure out how to enjoy it with them. How to, just how to enjoy it. It's we view it with too much fear and tension. This is why, even throwing us back to all the way in the beginning of our conversation, the fear mongering. This is the problem: is that we think that awareness is going to lead parents to make sure their kids don't do drugs. You can't. You're not going to be there forever.
It's going to make sure that they don't develop a relationship with them.
Right. Yeah. You're just going to be on top of them all the time.
You're try to be a jail
Where are you
guard,
going?
yeah.
Who are you with? It's an interrogation, right? The example I like to use also, like your mother-in-law calls you, right? Or your mother-in-law calls you if you're a woman. Your father-in-law calls you if you're a guy, I guess. And it's like, it's just like a Sunday night. And they're like, I think we should, I would like to get coffee with you this week, if that's okay. If you can, you're like, oh.
Instant sweating.
Oh, God. Coffee, when? It's like Thursday? Like, no. No,
lactose.
I'm not waiting till Thursday. Let's do it right now. It's like a Sunday night. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Well, I'm awake anyway. We'll go for coffee somewhere right now. What's
Where
up?
are you?
When we say to our kids, Tzaddik, come here, I want to talk to you. If that is a bump, oh God moment,
Gotta start over.
yeah,
How do you start over?
yeah. So silliness,
Be silly.
playfulness,
Okay.
playfulness, curiosity. Your kids know when you're asking out of, where do you go when you're asking out of curiosity? Curiosity. Be curious about the kid in his life. We're not, we just had Hanukkah, right? My wife one time told me from Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan, right? We have, Hanukkah is directly connected to Chinuch. We know it's the Maharal brought down everywhere. But Hanukkah is directly connected to Chinuch. And when we're talking about the Neiros specifically, we're speaking about generations to come. We're speaking about our children. We're speaking about Chinuch now. We're speaking about, so Ein lanu reshut lishtamish bahem kodeshem. First of all, they're kadosh. They didn't miss it. The Rebbeinu Shalom created them too. They have a neshama, and that neshama is going to guide them. It's going to lead them. But Ein lanu reshut lishtamish bahem. We have no right to touch them. We have no right to mold that neshama. Ela l'ra'otam bilvad. Our job is lir'ot, is to watch them. When you watch something and you're able to watch it, like that painting I mentioned, you're able to watch it, there's a curiosity, there's an interest. When you watch your children with that curiosity and interest, you're actually raising them now because they feel important. The person who is the most important person in their entire world, the whole world, is watching them with interest right now. They want to be good. Then they want to be everything.
Seen.
They want to be seen, but seen. They want to be real. And I think that's what that painting was for me also. This painting has haunted me till today. I've been trying to get it. I don't know. It's just not working out for me.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
As we wind down, what was that tattoo you'd say you'd get if you can?
Better to become.
Better to become.
Better to become. No matter what happens, if you can, and it became a mantra of mine. In my home, before I walk in, a lot of times, you know, these things affect you.
Yeah.
You know, last week where I was saying I have to go after this. Today's Wednesday.
Thursday.
Today's Thursday already.
I think you missed it.
So yesterday was Wednesday. I did. Well, I didn't miss it. He missed it. Yesterday, this old student of mine who just passed away, he reached out to me actually last week. We spoke on and off. We were very close when we were in Israel. We spoke on and off a lot. Like this kid was I really loved him a lot. And he reached out to me last week and he was going through something. And he was like, where do you go? I was like, I'm going to be in New York. I'm going to be in Manhattan even next week, Wednesday. I'm like, let's get coffee. And he was like, Rabbi, you just gave me like a great reason to make it to Wednesday. So thank you. Like, that's awesome. We'll sit down. We spoke for a little bit and then he's like, we'll sit down Wednesday. And Tuesday morning, Monday morning, I woke up to a text from one of his best friends that,
And he passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. And you when you drive home afterwards, like you can't bring that into the house.
It's heavy.
You can't.
Yeah.
So I sit in my driveway. I meditate, but I sit in my driveway for about 10, 15 on a day like that, 20 minutes before I go in, just saying to myself, you got to be calm. You got to be calm. It's not your kid. That's a different kid, which is a whole separate thing to go into, but you got to be calm. You got to be calm in there. You can't also be super dad because you think your kids are going to you're going to burn out. Like, just be you, be calm in there, be calm, let all of that go. And you walk in and he's like, he hit me, and you're just like smiling. You're like, oh man, he hit you. Oh, like, that's what a kid wants. Like, they don't want you to be their avenger for his life. Like, they want you to listen and they want to be seen. So if you could just be calm, things pass so much quicker. But you have to, again, I think I heard Brene Brown one time say, I don't know who she was quoting, pain is a difficult emotion to ignore. Joy is a difficult emotion to allow. When we feel pain, no one asked for that. It's involuntary. You just feel it. It just happens. It kicks in the door and walks in without you in order to feel joy, you have to open up a door and allow it in. It could be standing there. It could be right in front of your nose, and you're not opening the door to let it in. Our children in our home should be the focus of our joy, of where we're gaining joy from. We need to open the door to allow it in.
Wow.
Not to, and that's when we start parenting out of fear. We start correcting everyone when they're wrong in the house, and then not saying a word when they're right. Not saying a word when they do something right. We don't equally react to a glass breaking, to a kid putting a dish away. We don't equally react to that. Well, he should be doing that, and he shouldn't be doing that. Right. So congratulate what he should be doing. But we don't act like that. I don't act like that. Like we have to allow joy in. And the only way to do that is to make the time and really focus on the fact that I want to be calm. People think that happiness is the goal. It's not. Happiness isn't a real thing. It's fleeting. It comes, it goes. It'll either happen or it won't happen. Happiness isn't a thing. What people's goals can switch for is peace. I want to be serene. I want to be peaceful. I want to be calm. If I'm calm, the door is open for happiness now. So when happiness comes, it'll come. And when pain comes, I'm still going to be at peace. I can't battle happiness and pain. Those things I'll lose my mind.
It's like oil and water, yeah.
I'll react bad. I'll start laughing when something bad happens. That's bad, because it doesn't work. If I'm peaceful when something bad happens, I'm able to sit in it and allow it and have it happen. But I need to be calm. I need to be peaceful. And we could go on for hours about this.
The goal is soul.
Nachi, you mentioned bounty hunter. I feel like the bounty that you are receiving from the work that you're doing is helping facilitate that type of emotional acceptance between a mother who can buy a leather jacket for her son and go beyond that intellectual acceptance and emotionally accept what's happening.
Right.
And the type of relationship that you're describing with children that you're offering our audience. That is the bounty.
You wouldn't take any amount of money to replace that, probably.
No. And that also brings us back to goals. Like, their goal was for their kid to be this. And that's why you're losing your goal, because you're not daily parenting. You're goal parenting. So, like, I want my kid to go here. Right. And we drive people crazy with this. We have all these milestones that people have to hit. They have to, girls, a single girl, I don't know how they live through this trauma in their lives and are normal afterwards. It makes no sense to me. Where you're totally not allowed, and then you go to seminary, you come back, like, you have to be married already. Yeah. Like, how are you not married? How is the phone not ringing off the hook? It's like anxiety.
You didn't meet someone on the plane?
You couldn't meet someone on the plane.
Yeah, because then
you didn't meet a shotgun on the plane who knows someone whose aunt is where to go.
It's like red light, green light.
We stop believing in Rabbeinu Shalom completely when it comes to Shidduchim, when he said himself that it's Kriyas Yamsuf. Like, I'm the only one who could do this. And we're like, no. We don't need your help over here. We're getting on this. So, and it never stops. Then they got married. You have to have a kid. Why haven't you had a kid yet? Then they had a kid. Is that kid going to be okay? I think he's struggling in this. I think he's struggling in that. Is that kid going to get married? We just live in this and we call it, this is the crime of our generation. We call it frumkeit. This is what being a frum Jew is. Making sure you're dressed the right way, making sure you're hitting the right milestones that we made up. Nowhere in the whole Torah does it say that a woman has to get married right when she gets back from seminary. It doesn't say it anywhere. We made all this stuff up. And people are rebelling against it. Every kid that I've ever met, just about every kid that I've ever met, every adult that I've ever met that is rebelling against frumkeit or Judaism is rebelling against things that we made up in the past 70 years.
So they're not rebelling against frumkeit. They're
not rebelling against Hashem. They're not rebelling against Torah. They're not rebelling against any of it. They're rebelling against the package that we put it in.
Man-made issues.
All over the place.
We could do better.
And this all came because we're not calm. We are not calm people.
We're anxious.
We're anxious as anything. We're goal-oriented in our children. We're setting goals for them. That is l'shtamesh b'hem. That's us messing around with them, and we're not allowed to do that.
Rabbi Yossi, really appreciate the time. Yeah. We're going to need a part 2 because there's so much more to, again, like the cameras are dying all around us. So that's our cue. But really appreciate.
I killed the cameras.
Yeah, but really appreciate you giving us the time. And I know the feedback from this is going to be unbelievable. And Rich Hashem, we'll have a part 2 for this.
And I just want to say, guys, it is, I think we were number 2 in podcasts right behind you guys.
2 Cents Podcast. Everyone's got to check out 2 Cents Podcast.
It was the only one I was okay losing to.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't understand what any of this means, by the way. Ari sent it to me.
Yeah.
He's like, we're number 2. I'm like, no one ever says that. But fine. But, these things, the content that you're putting out there, I think is the beginning of something. I know we think we're already into it. I think it's the beginning of something huge. The amount of feedback I get from people who hear all these, and I felt so small being here. I'm saying you interviewed Ruvain. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
The girl from Passaic, like these people are giants, and I shouldn't be here. But hearing these people's stories and hearing what people are going through and hearing, that's awareness. That's real awareness, because you're giving the context, you're giving the understanding, you're giving the experience to a person. They can actually work through that. They can understand that. They can converse over that. They can connect to that. When it's sent down in these like little snippets, it kills it. So kol hakavod, guys. Really, it's
Appreciate
amazing
it.
what you guys are doing out there.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate it.
I really hope you all enjoyed this episode. So Momo just got a tattoo on his arm. No, I'm kidding. And neither did Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan.
Wow, what an unbelievable experience just connecting with Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan in this studio here. It was very real. The way
Palpable.
The energy was palpable here. I hope the audience was able to pick up on it and experience it. But just for me as like a takeaway, just making space for having relationships with people in my life, whether it's children, siblings, parents, whoever it might be, making foundational space for those relationships so that you can draw upon it in a time of difficulty, in a time of crisis. Don't expect that relationship to be there when you need it if you don't work on it and build on it in advance.
Yeah, and something that he mentioned, which I thought was also so amazing, was that like, the kid who's 17 who's acting out, and you're like, oh, he's 17 years old. It's like, Rabbi Yossi, sort of drew a parallel to his 4-year-old who's acting out and said, well, the kid's not in this area in his life. He's 4. He's not developed, and something is holding him back. And when you look at it through that lens, like, you're gonna help your 4-year-old. You're not gonna
Nurture that inner child. Yeah.
So there's so much in this episode, and we're definitely gonna record a part 2 because there's so much. We ran an hour and a half, which is up there on the longest end. On the longer
Is it
end,
that long?
we could have gone 2 hours, but one of two of our cameras died in the middle. They passed away. I'm sorry. I don't like saying the D word. Anyways, that's our episode for this week. We're going to be back at you with another episode next week, of course. Please make sure to leave a review, to leave a rating. I haven't pushed that in a while. But Momo and I, this much of Shabbos, we're going to be sitting down and we'll be reading the reviews to our families for Hanukkah. That's their Hanukkah gift. We're reading the Meaningful People reviews.
Bronius.
So make sure that you leave a review, because if you don't, little Timmy won't get a Hanukkah gift.
Oh,
Okay?
dear.
One of your kids' name is Timmy?
None. And that's a commitment to not name any children to me.
I guess I'll have to take one for the team.
There you go.
Timmy, we love you. Anyways, guys, see you
Timmy,
next week.
how are you doing?
How are you, dude, Timmy? Timothy. Timonis. Timothy.
All right, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed this video from Meaningful Minute. We have so much more content for you. You may like this. You may like this. Take your pick. Let us know what you think.